The best gift would be if you died, my daughter said. So I canceled her inheritance, and what happened next shocked the entire family. If you've ever wondered whether money really can't buy love, stick around. Because what happened at my 65th birthday dinner changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why I made a decision that shocked everyone who knows me. Let me take you back to 3 months ago. My name is Helen Wilson, and I just turned 65. After building a tech company from nothing and selling it for more money than I ever dreamed possible, I thought I had it all figured out. Beautiful penthouse overlooking the city, 2 grown children, and a granddaughter who lights up my world. But sometimes the people closest to you can surprise you in the most devastating ways. My dining room that evening looked like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandelier casting warm light over the mahogany table, fresh orchids I'd arranged myself, and the city skyline twinkling through floor-to-ceiling windows 40 stories below. I'd spent hours preparing for this dinner, not because I needed to impress anyone, but because I genuinely wanted to celebrate with the people I loved most. The table was set for 6, myself, my son Justin, his wife Sarah, their 4-year-old twins, my daughter Rebecca, and my 6-year-old granddaughter Emma. I'd even bought Emma's favorite sparkling apple cider in those fancy little bottles that make kids feel grown up. Justin arrived first, right on time as always. That's my son, responsible, thoughtful, everything a mother could want. He's a pediatric surgeon now, but he still gives me the same warm hug he did when he was 10 years old. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said, presenting me with a gift wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Inside was a photo album he'd made himself, filled with pictures spanning my entire life, from my childhood in Taiwan to my college graduation, my wedding, the kids growing up, and recent photos of all of us together. Each page had little handwritten notes from him. "Thank you for showing me that hard work and kindness can change the world," read one. Another said, "You taught me that success means nothing if you don't share it with people you love." I'm not ashamed to say I teared up. This is what love looks like, I thought. Not expensive, but priceless. Sarah had made me her famous lemon bars, the recipe I'd been trying to get out of her for 3 years. The twins, bless them, had drawn me birthday cards with stick figures of our whole family, complete with my business lady clothes, as they called my suits. We were laughing, sharing stories, and I was thinking this might be one of my favorite birthdays ever. Then I heard the elevator ding in the hallway. Rebecca arrived 45 minutes late. Not fashionably late, just late. She walked in with Emma, and I could immediately sense her mood. You know how some people can suck the energy out of a room just by walking into it? That was my daughter that night. "God, Mom, this neighborhood gets more pretentious every year," were her first words. Not, "Happy birthday," or "Sorry I'm late." Just criticism. It took me 20 minutes to find parking because apparently everyone here needs 2 parking spaces for their ridiculous cars. Emma ran straight to me though, her little arms wrapping around my waist. "Happy birthday, Grandma. I made you something at school, but Mommy forgot it at home." I saw Rebecca's jaw tighten, but I just smiled and kissed Emma's forehead. "That's okay, sweetheart. Having you here is the best present." As we sat down to dinner, I noticed Rebecca hadn't brought a gift. Now, I want to be clear, I don't need gifts. I can buy myself anything I want. But it's the thought that counts, and the complete lack of thought was what stung. Throughout the appetizer, Rebecca made passive-aggressive comments about everything. The wine was probably more than most people make in a week. The meal was a bit much for a family dinner, don't you think? When Justin mentioned his recent promotion, she muttered something about some people having all the luck. I was trying to keep the mood light, but I could feel the tension building like a storm cloud over what should have been a celebration. That's when I decided to share my exciting news. "I have something wonderful to tell you all," I said, raising my wine glass. "I've decided to take a sabbatical. For the first time in 40 years, I'm going to truly live. I'm planning to spend 6 months traveling, maybe start in Japan for the cherry blossoms, then Europe, maybe end in New Zealand for their summer." Justin's face lit up immediately. "Mom, that sounds incredible. You've worked so hard for so long, you absolutely deserve this." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. We could video call with the kids so they can see all the places you visit. But Rebecca's reaction was immediate and visceral. Her fork clattered against her plate. 6 months, she said, and I could hear something sharp in her voice. That's quite a long time to be away from your family. I've earned it, don't you think? I replied gently. 40 years of 14-hour days, building something from nothing. I've worked for 40 years. Don't I deserve to see the world? Easy for you to say when some of us are barely keeping our heads above water, Rebecca shot back. The table went quiet. Even the twins seemed to sense the shift in mood and stopped chattering about their day at school. Rebecca, Justin warned quietly, but she was just getting started. It's just so typical, she continued. Making grand announcements about abandoning your responsibilities when people actually need you. I felt my chest tighten, but I tried to stay calm. I'm not abandoning anyone. It's just travel. People do it all the time. But you're not people, are you, Mom? You're our mother. Some of us don't have the luxury of just disappearing for half a year. That's when I made what I thought was an innocent comment. Before I go, I want to put all my affairs in order. Update my will, organize my documents, make sure everything is properly arranged in case something happens while I'm traveling. The change in Rebecca's expression was instantaneous. For just a moment, and I mean just a split second, I saw something flash across her face. Was it relief? Hope? My blood ran cold as I realized what she might be thinking. She thought I was saying goodbye. She thought I was dying. And for that brief moment, she looked almost glad. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, watching my daughter's face carefully. The way she suddenly straightened up in her chair. How her breathing seemed to quicken. The calculating look that replaced her previous irritation. What kind of affairs? She asked, trying to sound casual but failing completely. Just practical things, I said slowly, studying her reaction. Making sure my financial advisor has updated contact information, reviewing my insurance policies, that sort of thing. I watched as Rebecca seemed to mentally catalog this information, filing it away like she was planning something. The woman sitting across from me didn't look like my daughter anymore. She looked like someone doing math in her head, and I was terrified of what equation she might be solving. Justin must have sensed something too, because he cleared his throat and said, Mom, this sounds amazing. You've earned this adventure. We'll all miss you, but we want you to be happy. But Rebecca wasn't listening to her brother. She was staring at me with an intensity that made me profoundly uncomfortable. Then Emma's sweet voice cut through the tension like a ray of sunshine. Grandma, will you bring me back something pretty from your trip? Like a snow globe or a pretty rock? I smiled at my granddaughter, my heart breaking a little at her innocence in the middle of all this adult drama. Of course, sweetheart, I'll bring you something beautiful from every place I visit. But as I looked back at Rebecca, I realized that something fundamental had shifted in that moment. The way she was looking at me, the calculations behind her eyes, the way she kept glancing at Justin as if measuring his reaction to everything I said. I had no idea that in less than an hour, my daughter would say something so devastating that it would change our relationship forever. Something so cruel that I would spend the next month questioning everything I thought I knew about motherhood, about love, and about the price of success. So there we were, dessert served but barely touched. The chocolate birthday cake I'd special ordered from that little bakery Emma loves. It might as well have been cardboard for all the attention anyone was paying to it. The mood in my dining room had shifted so dramatically that even the city lights outside seemed different, colder somehow, like they were judging us through those floor-to-ceiling windows. I was still reeling from that look I'd seen on Rebecca's face, that flash of what I could only describe as hope when she thought I might be dying. But I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Surely my own daughter couldn't be thinking what I thought she was thinking. I was wrong. Trying to restore some normalcy to the evening, I decided to explain more about my travel plans. You know, while I'm getting my affairs organized, I'm also thinking about updating my will, I said, cutting a piece of cake for Emma. It's been years since I looked at it, and I want to make sure everything reflects my current wishes. It was an innocent comment, or so I thought. The change in Rebecca was immediate and terrifying. She went completely rigid in her chair, her knuckles white where she gripped her wine glass. "Your will?" she repeated, and her voice had this strange, tight quality that made everyone at the table stop mid-conversation. "Well, yes," I said carefully, suddenly aware that I was walking into a minefield. "It's just practical. When you travel internationally for extended periods, it's wise to have everything properly organized." Justin nodded reasonably. "That makes sense, Mom. Peace of mind for everyone." But Rebecca looked like she was about to explode. Her breathing had become shallow and rapid, and she kept looking between me and Justin like she was calculating something in her head. "So you're just casually mentioning that you're changing your will," she said, and now her voice was getting louder. "Just dropping that into dinner conversation like it's no big deal." I set down my fork, confused by her intensity. "Rebecca, I'm not changing anything dramatically. I'm just making sure everything is current and properly documented." That's when she lost it completely. "This is exactly what you always do," she screamed, standing up so abruptly her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "You dangle your money over our heads like some kind of puppet master. Every conversation, every family gathering, there's always some mention of your precious will, your money, your control over all of us." I sat there, stunned. Where was this coming from? "Rebecca, you were just what? Reminding us who really has the power here. Making sure we all know that we're only valued for what we might inherit someday." Emma started to cry. My beautiful 6-year-old granddaughter, who moments before had been excitedly talking about the souvenirs I'd bring her, was now sobbing because her mother was screaming at her grandmother. Justin immediately went into damage control mode. "Rebecca, stop. You're scaring Emma. Whatever this is about, we can discuss it privately later." But Rebecca was beyond reason now. She whirled on her brother. "Oh, of course you'd take her side. You with your perfect life and your perfect job and your perfect family. You don't need her money, so you can afford to be the good son." I was trying to process what was happening when Rebecca said something that made my blood run cold. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be drowning financially while your mother sits on millions?" she continued, tears streaming down her face now. "I've been counting on my inheritance to get out of debt. I've already made commitments based on that security. I took out a loan against my future inheritance to keep Emma in her school, to keep our apartment." The room went dead silent except for Emma's sniffles. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She'd taken out a loan against money that wasn't even hers yet? Against money she had no guarantee of receiving? "Rebecca," I said quietly, trying to understand. "Why didn't you tell me you were in financial trouble? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I shouldn't have to beg," she screamed. "I'm your daughter. I shouldn't have to grovel for what should rightfully be mine anyway." I was grasping for anything to defuse the situation. The whole evening had spiraled so far out of control that I didn't even recognize the woman standing in my dining room as the little girl I'd raised, the daughter I'd loved unconditionally for 28 years. "Rebecca, please," I said, standing up slowly. "You're upset and I understand that. Maybe I should what? Pretend that you're not manipulating all of us with your money? Pretend that every decision you make isn't calculated to maintain control?" In desperation, trying to inject some levity into the nightmare my birthday dinner had become, I made what I thought was a harmless joke. "Well, if my will is causing this much trouble, maybe I should just leave everything to charity instead. Then nobody would have to worry about it." I said it with a small laugh, hoping to break the tension. It was the worst mistake I could have made. Rebecca's face went from red with anger to white with rage. The transformation was so complete, so terrifying, that I actually took a step backward. "There it is," she said, her voice now deadly quiet. "The threat. Step out of line, and Mommy will give away all the money to strangers instead of her own children." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. This is how you've controlled us our entire lives. Justin might be too blind to see it, but I'm not." Emma was crying harder now, and Sarah had pulled her close, trying to shield her from the adult drama exploding around her. Justin was on his feet too, his face a mixture of shock and growing anger at his sister. Rebecca, you need to stop this right now, he said firmly. You're way out of line. I'm out of line? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm out of line for finally telling the truth about our manipulative mother? And then, in a moment of pure rage and desperation, my daughter looked directly at me and said the words that would haunt me for months to come. You know what the best gift would be? If you just died already. Then at least your money could finally do some good, instead of just sitting there making you feel superior. The silence that followed was deafening. It was as if the entire world had stopped spinning. I could hear my own heartbeat, the sound of Emma's quiet sobs, the distant hum of traffic 40 stories below. But in that dining room, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. I felt something break inside my chest, not physically, but emotionally. It was like a piece of my heart just cracked and fell away. This was my daughter, the little girl I'd held when she had nightmares, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college tuition I'd paid, whose dreams I'd supported even when they seemed impossible. And she was wishing for my death. Emma broke the silence by running to me, wrapping her little arms around my waist. She didn't understand the words, but she understood that Grandma was hurting, and her pure, innocent love in that moment nearly broke me completely. Apologize, Justin said, his voice shaking with fury. Apologize to our mother right now, Rebecca. But Rebecca just stood there, breathing hard, and I could see in her eyes that she realized she'd gone too far. But she was too proud, too angry, too invested in her rage to take it back. I looked at my family, my son horrified, my daughter-in-law clutching Emma protectively, my granddaughter confused and scared, and my daughter standing there like a stranger I'd never met before. I think, I said quietly, my voice somehow steady despite the earthquake happening inside me, everyone should leave now. As they gathered their things in stunned silence, as Rebecca avoided my eyes while collecting Emma's jacket, as Justin tried to apologize for his sister's behavior, I was already making a decision that would change everything. After they left, I stood alone in my dining room, holding Emma's forgotten stuffed rabbit, a little pink bunny she'd brought to show me, but dropped in all the chaos. The cake sat untouched on the table, the candles I'd blown out earlier, now just cold wax reminders of what was supposed to be a celebration. But I wasn't thinking about the ruined birthday anymore. I was thinking about those words. If you just died already. And I was thinking about what I was going to do about them. It's been 3 days since my daughter told me the best gift would be my death. 3 days of sleepless nights, staring at the ceiling of my penthouse bedroom, replaying those words over and over in my mind. If you just died already. I'm sitting in my home office now, rain drumming against the floor-to-ceiling windows like nature's own soundtrack to my somber mood. My mahogany desk is covered with legal documents, papers that will change my family's future forever. The city below looks gray and blurred through the water streaming down the glass, matching exactly how I feel inside. You know what the hardest part was? Not the anger. I could have handled anger. It was the realization that my own daughter had been calculating my worth in dollars and cents probably for years. Every family gathering, every conversation, every "I love you," how much of it was genuine, and how much was an investment in her financial future. That morning, I called Harrison Webb, my attorney, for the past 15 years. Harrison has seen me through business deals, my husband's death, and countless family legal matters. But I'd never called him with a request like this one. "Helen," he said when he arrived at my office, his gray hair perfectly styled despite the rain, "you sounded quite serious on the phone. What can I help you with?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same chair where Rebecca would sit later, demanding answers she wouldn't like. "Harrison, I need to completely revise my will. I want my daughter Rebecca removed entirely." His bushy eyebrows shot up. In 15 years, I'd never made a decision this drastic. "That's quite a significant change. Are you certain about this?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." As Harrison pulled out his legal pad, I explained what I wanted. Rebecca's entire portion of my estate would go into a trust for Emma, my granddaughter, accessible only when she turned 25. Justin would retain his inheritance, but I was also establishing a substantial charitable foundation in my late husband's name. And if Rebecca contests the will? Harrison asked, his pen poised over I smiled grimly. Then she'll discover just how thoroughly I've documented her own words about wishing for my death. I recorded our last conversation on my phone, purely by accident, since I was trying to take pictures of the birthday dinner earlier. Sometimes technology saves evidence we don't even know we need. Just as Harrison was packing up his papers, I heard the elevator ding in the hallway. Only family members have the access code to reach my floor directly. A moment later, Justin knocked on my office door. "Mom, can we talk?" Harrison discreetly excused himself, promising to have the new documents ready within 48 hours. Justin entered, looking like he hadn't slept much either. His usually pristine doctor appearance was rumpled, his tie loose, his eyes tired. "I've been thinking about the other night," he began, settling into the chair Harrison had vacated. "What Rebecca said was unforgivable, but Mom, completely cutting her out? That feels extreme." I leaned back in my leather chair, studying my son's face. "Justin, your sister told me the best gift would be my death. She's been counting on my money to solve her problems instead of asking her own mother for help. What would you do?" "I understand you're hurt." "I'm beyond hurt," I interrupted. "I'm betrayed, but more than that, I'm concerned about what kind of person she's becoming. Or maybe what kind of person she's always been, and I was too blind to see it." Justin ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from his childhood when he was struggling with a difficult problem. "There's something else you should know," he said quietly. "I've been helping Rebecca financially," he admitted. "Not directly, she would never accept money from me. But when she needed that deposit for Emma's school, I anonymously paid it through the school's financial aid program. When her car broke down last year, I arranged for a contest she won to cover the repairs." I stared at my son, processing this information. "Why didn't you tell me she was struggling?" "Because she made me promise not to. She said she'd rather struggle than have you think she was a failure." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "But Mom, there's more. She's not the only one who's been receiving help." My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" "You have been supporting her. You've been doing it for years, and she doesn't even know." Before Justin could explain further, we heard the elevator again. This time, the footsteps in the hallway were sharp, urgent, angry. Rebecca burst into my office without knocking, her hair wet from the rain, her face flushed with desperation. "We need to talk," she announced, then stopped short when she saw Justin. "Oh, family meeting?" "Rebecca," I said calmly, "take a seat." She remained standing, her arms crossed defensively. "Justin told me you're changing your will, that you're cutting me out completely." "That's correct. Because of what I said at dinner. Because of what you revealed about who you really are." The rain intensified against the windows, filling the silence between us. Rebecca's composure was cracking, but she was fighting to maintain her defiant stance. "Fine," she said. "You want to punish me for speaking the truth about how you manipulate people with money? Go ahead. I've been surviving without your help for years. I can keep doing it." That's when I dropped the bombshell that would change everything. "Rebecca," I said quietly, "you think you've been struggling alone? You think you've been surviving without my help?" I pulled out a folder from my desk drawer, a folder I'd been keeping for 2 years, documenting every payment I'd made on her behalf. "Your rent for the past 2 years? I've been paying it through your landlord. That discount he gave you when you were going through your divorce? That was me, making up the difference." Her face went white. "That's impossible. Your health insurance that you thought was subsidized by the state? I pay those premiums directly to the insurance company. Emma's art classes, her dance lessons, that scholarship she received to the gifted program at school. That was all me, Rebecca." I watched as the color drained completely from my daughter's face. She sank into the chair like her legs had given out. "You want to know what else?" I continued, my voice growing stronger with each revelation. "That grocery store gift card you found in your mailbox every month with no return address? Your car insurance that mysteriously never goes up despite your claims? The medical bills that keep getting marked paid in full by anonymous benefactors?" Rebecca was shaking her head, but I could see the recognition dawning in her eyes. For 2 years, I've been supporting you and Emma in ways you'd never have to feel embarrassed about, I said, my voice softer now. Because I knew you were too proud to ask, and I was too proud to force help on you that you didn't want. Justin leaned forward. I helped coordinate some of it, Rebecca. The school payments, the insurance stuff. Mom made me promise never to tell you. Why? Rebecca whispered, and for the first time since her outburst at dinner, she sounded like my little girl again. Because I love you, I said simply. Because you're my daughter, and seeing you struggle was breaking my heart. Because I wanted you to maintain your dignity while still being safe and cared for. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of rain and Rebecca's shaky breathing. But here's what I realized after the other night, I continued, my voice growing firm again. My love has been invisible to you. You've been so focused on what you might inherit someday that you couldn't see what you were receiving every day. Rebecca looked up at me, tears starting to form in her eyes. I didn't know. No, you didn't. And more importantly, you didn't trust me enough to tell me you needed help. Instead, you took out a loan against money that wasn't even yours yet, money you had no guarantee of receiving. I was desperate. You were entitled, I corrected. There's a difference. Desperate people ask for help. Entitled people assume they deserve what they haven't earned. I stood up, walking to the window where the rain was creating abstract patterns on the glass. So here's where we stand, Rebecca. I've already changed my will. Your portion now goes into a trust for Emma, accessible when she turns 25. Mom, please. I held up my hand, but I'm willing to consider changing it back, under one condition. She leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. You show me genuine change. Not apologies, not promises, not dramatic gestures. Real, sustained change in how you treat me, how you treat this family, and how you handle your own life. You get professional help for whatever issues led you to wish for your mother's death. You prove to me that you value our relationship beyond what it might be worth financially. And here's the part you really need to understand, I continued. All that financial support I've been giving you, it stops today. The rent payments, the insurance, the mysterious bill payments, all of it ends now. If you want my help going forward, you ask for it directly, like an adult daughter talking to her mother. Rebecca's face cycled through emotions, shock, fear, anger, and something that might have been respect. How long do I have? She asked quietly. As long as it takes to prove you've changed. But Rebecca, understand this. There are no second chances after this conversation. If you ever speak to me the way you did at that dinner again, if you ever again treat me like an ATM with legs, if you ever again wish for my death so you can have my money, it's over, permanently. Rebecca stood up slowly, her legs still shaky. She looked at Justin, then at me, then back at the floor. I need to think, she said finally. Take all the time you need, I replied. But understand that while you're thinking, your bills are now entirely your responsibility. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle, and turned back to look at me. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Not calculation, not entitlement, but what might have been genuine remorse. Mom, she said quietly. But she didn't finish the sentence. She just shook her head and left. After she was gone, Justin and I sat in silence for several minutes, listening to the rain and processing what had just happened. Do you think she'll change? He asked. I honestly don't know, I replied. But for the first time in years, I think she understands what's really at stake here. What I didn't tell Justin, what I haven't told anyone, is what Rebecca did next. It's been exactly 1 month since I gave Rebecca my ultimatum. 1 month since I told her that all financial support would stop, that she needed to prove genuine change, and that there would be no second chances. I'm standing in my penthouse living room now, but it looks completely different than it did during that disastrous birthday dinner. Cardboard boxes are stacked neatly near the windows, labeled with destinations: Tokyo, Paris, Auckland. My sabbatical is finally happening. Tomorrow, I board a plane to Japan to see the cherry blossoms I've dreamed about for 40 years. The afternoon sun is streaming through windows I had professionally cleaned this morning, casting everything in golden light. Somehow, even with half my belongings packed away, this space feels warmer than it has in months. Maybe it's the anticipation of adventure, or maybe it's something else entirely. That's when I heard the elevator. The footsteps in the hallway weren't the sharp, angry staccato I'd heard a month ago. These were hesitant, almost timid. When Rebecca knocked on my door, actually knocked, instead of barging in, I knew something fundamental had changed. "Mom, it's Rebecca. May I come in?" Even her voice was different. Softer. More respectful. I opened the door to find a woman I barely recognized. This wasn't the entitled, desperate daughter who had screamed at me about inheritance. Rebecca's hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore clothes I'd never seen before, clean but clearly not expensive. And her eyes were clear in a way they hadn't been in years. "I know you're leaving tomorrow," she said quietly, staying in the doorway until I gestured for her to come in. "I was hoping we could talk before you go." As she entered my living room, I noticed she was carrying a manila envelope and what looked like a child's drawing. But first, I needed to understand what had happened to her in the past month. "You look different," I said carefully. She smiled. A real smile, not the forced ones I'd grown accustomed to. "I am different. Mom, I've spent the last month in therapy, 3 times a week with Dr. Martinez downtown, and I've been working 2 jobs. 2 jobs? Waitressing at a diner during the day, and I clean offices at night. I'm making enough to cover rent, groceries, and Emma's basics." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm actually supporting myself." I studied her face, looking for signs of the resentment or martyrdom I expected. Instead, I saw something I hadn't seen since she was a child: pride. Not arrogance, but genuine self-respect. "When the rent payment didn't come through automatically like it had for 2 years, my landlord called me," she continued. "That's when I realized, God, Mom, I realized how much you'd been doing without me even knowing, and I was so ashamed." Rebecca set down the envelope and drawing on my coffee table and turned to face me fully. Tears were starting to form in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "Mom, I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond, okay?" I nodded. "What I said at your birthday dinner was the cruelest thing I've ever said to another human being. Wishing for your death so I could have your money, there's no excuse for that. None. Not my financial stress, not my pride, not my anger about feeling controlled. Nothing justifies what I said to you." The tears were flowing freely now, but her voice remained steady. "You've loved me unconditionally my entire life, and I responded by treating you like a bank account with legs. You supported me for years in ways that protected my dignity, and I was too selfish and entitled to even notice. I was so focused on what I might get someday that I couldn't see what you were giving me every day." She picked up the child's drawing from the coffee table. "Emma made this for you. She doesn't know about our fight, I made sure of that, but she knows Grandma is going on a big adventure." I took the drawing with trembling hands. It was a picture of the 3 of us, Emma, Rebecca, and me, standing under a rainbow. In a 6-year-old's careful handwriting it said, "I love you, Grandma. Have fun seeing the world. Love, Emma. P.S. Mommy says you're brave." "She made you something else too," Rebecca said, reaching into her pocket. "A friendship bracelet. She's been working on it for weeks, using every color she could find because she wanted it to be as beautiful as Grandma." The bracelet was lumpy and uneven, made of embroidery floss in every color imaginable. It was the most beautiful piece of jewelry I'd ever seen. "What's in the envelope?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "Proof," Rebecca said simply. "Paycheck stubs from both my jobs, a receipt from Dr. Martinez's office showing I've paid for 8 sessions, a letter from Emma's school confirming that I've set up a payment plan for her tuition that comes directly from my checking account. And this." She pulled out a cashier's check and handed it to me. It was made out in my name for $847. "It's not much, but it's every dollar I can spare right now. I calculated what you spent on my rent for 2 years, my insurance, Emma's extras. This is the beginning of paying you back." I stared at the check, overwhelmed. "Rebecca, I don't want." "Mom, please take it. I need to do this. I need to pay my own way, and I need to acknowledge what you gave me. It'll take me years to pay you back completely, but I will. Every penny." I set the check down and looked at my daughter, really looked at her. This wasn't the same person who had exploded at my birthday dinner. This was someone who had done the hardest thing possible. She had genuinely changed. Rebecca, I need to tell you something. Something I probably should have told you a month ago. Her face tensed, probably expecting another revelation about secret support. I was never actually going to leave you with nothing. She blinked, confused. What do you mean? The will change was temporary. Yes, I was furious. Yes, I needed you to understand the consequences of your words. But I would never permanently abandon my own daughter, no matter what she said in a moment of desperation. Rebecca sank into my sofa like her legs had given out. You mean, this was all a lesson? Not all of it, I said quickly. My hurt was real. My disappointment was real. The need for change was absolutely real. But Rebecca, you're my daughter. Even at my angriest, I couldn't imagine a future where you weren't part of my life. I sat down beside her on the sofa. But here's what I didn't expect. You actually changed. Not because you had to. Not because I was forcing you to. But because you genuinely wanted to become a better person. That means everything to me. I picked up my purse and pulled out a legal document. I had Harrison prepare a new will last week. You're back in it, but things are different now. Rebecca shook her head. Mom, I don't want your money. I mean, I do want it eventually because I'm human and it would make life easier. But I don't need it to know that you love me anymore. That's what I learned this month. I know you don't need it, I said. But you're still my daughter, and I still want to provide for your future. Here's what I've decided. You'll inherit a meaningful amount, but not enough to make you stop working or growing. The majority of your original inheritance goes into Emma's trust, accessible when she turns 25. And I'm establishing a charitable foundation that will eventually receive the bulk of my wealth. There's one more condition, I continued. You get an annual allowance that increases based on maintaining our relationship. Not with money, but with respect, honesty, and genuine affection. If we can have dinner once a month without fighting about money, if you can call me just to talk, if you can treat me like your mother instead of your future benefactor, then the allowance grows. Rebecca laughed through her tears. So you're incentivizing good behavior? I'm incentivizing genuine relationship, I corrected. Money will never be the foundation of our connection again. It's just a bonus for maintaining the real thing. That evening, we had another family dinner, but this time it was different in every possible way. Rebecca had cooked, actually cooked, bringing homemade lasagna and garlic bread to my penthouse. Justin and Sarah came with the twins, and Emma proudly helped me put on the friendship bracelet she'd made. We sat around the same table where, just a month before, my daughter had wished for my death. But the energy was completely transformed. We talked about my travel plans, Rebecca's new jobs, Justin's latest cases at the hospital, and the twins' upcoming school play. For the first time in years, maybe decades, money wasn't an undercurrent in our conversation. We were just a family, enjoying each other's company. The next morning, Justin and Rebecca both came to see me off at the airport. Emma had made me a travel journal, decorated with stickers and filled with blank pages for Grandma's adventures. As I was about to board my flight to Tokyo, Rebecca hugged me, really hugged me, not the perfunctory embraces we'd shared for years. Have the most amazing time, Mom. You've earned every moment of this trip. I love you too. And Mom, thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. As my plane lifted off, flying toward the cherry blossoms I'd dreamed about for so long, I found myself thinking about gifts. Real gifts, not the expensive things money can buy. The gift of seeing your child choose to become a better person. The gift of watching pride replace entitlement. The gift of genuine relationship after years of transactional interactions. The gift of forgiveness, both giving it and receiving it. Rebecca was right about one thing at that birthday dinner. I did get the best gift. But it wasn't my death, it was her rebirth. Her transformation from someone who valued my money over my life into someone who valued our relationship over financial security. Sometimes the cruelest words lead to the most necessary changes. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what really matters. And sometimes, the best inheritance you can give someone isn't money, it's the opportunity to earn their own self-respect. If this story taught me anything, it's that love can't be bought, but it can be rebuilt. Trust can't be inherited, but it can be earned. And family isn't about what you leave behind when you die. It's about what you build together while you're alive. To everyone watching this, if you have broken relationships in your family, it's never too late to repair them. But it takes courage to demand better from the people you love, and even more courage to become better yourself. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about family, forgiveness, and finding your way back to each other. And in the comments, tell me about a time when cruel words led to necessary change in your own life. Remember, the best gifts aren't the ones wrapped in expensive paper. They're the ones wrapped in genuine love, honest communication, and the willingness to grow. Thank you for following this journey with me.